Welcome back, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck. With me as ever, David Griscom. Hello, Dave.
Hey man, how you doing? Happy Easter, everybody.
That's right. I need to be better at remembering these particularly Catholic holidays in case I accidentally call up one of my relatives to be like, hey, and don't know that it's one of those days, and out myself as a heathen. But yeah, it is Easter weekend. And look, as you should on the Easter weekend, we're going to get a little bit upscale and luxurious, and start off a little bit with. We'll get into some Trump Jr. as well, but our boys over at Upscale Luxury Instagram page have been, busy at work selling their account for.
So, can we remind people about this page and why you and I have loved it so much over the years?
Yeah, so it used to be. I mean, what did it really used to be back?
It used to be some guy in Atlanta who wanted to be an influencer, right? Yeah. And he would post pictures of bathrooms that were really nice, or
right,
fancy houses, and then he would write some kind of bizarre kind of rise and grind hustle poem, or caption underneath it. But again, he wasn't a rich guy. He was aspiring to become a rich guy. And that's what this was all about. It's man, if you work really, really hard and you cut out all the negative people from your life. It was really funny. Because you could see he was definitely having issues with his friends. He'd be cut out all the negative people in your life, and then would post a beautiful mansion in Maui or whatever. But very clearly, it has been acquired by somebody else now.
Yeah, grifters. And what I like it, occasionally you'll get it'll be taken over by someone, and they advertise the rates just in posts for how much it costs to actually take it over, and it's a decent amount, because this is how many people follow this? 1.4 million people are getting the upscale luxury experience. But they've been doing some car posting, and I love a couple of these. So first we're going to go, I think this was one of these rented out posts here. A guy named Brian Iacopone has some interesting advice, and maybe we can go through this and see how convincing we find this. And this reminds me of our boy Patrick Bet David, who talked about, in addition to doing insurance scams, he invested in luxury cars. And I know what you're thinking. Automobiles are famously one of the fastest depreciating assets you could put a lot of money into. They lose, just their value gets decimated in the first year and halved over 5 years. So it's interesting to see this post. This was my Lamborghini Gallardo. I paid $123,000 in cash. I put 8,000 miles on it in 10 months. When I sold it, I profited $20,000 despite the mileage. That is interesting. How'd you do that? No, I didn't sell it for some insane amount. I still paid taxes, insurance, and maintenance. But most people overlook the true benefit of owning a supercar. The credibility. In most big cities, owning a supercar is common. If I owned this car in Miami, it wouldn't be a big deal. But in most other cities and towns, owning a car like this is astronomical. People notice it from a mile away, especially people who you can do business with. Yeah.
I'm sorry. My editor brain is owning a car like this is astronomical.
Yeah, what more do you need to know?
It's just an incomplete sentence. Okay, anyway.
It's astronomical. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Business owners, investors, professionals. It was the easiest conversation starter. They approached me to show they were on my level, sharing details they normally wouldn't share. Leads to...
But wait, what are we talking about here? So is he talking about he's driving this into small town America?
Exactly.
And the guy who owns the gas station is walking out, be here's a hot. I mean, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. All right.
Well, maybe he'll explain. They approached me to show they were on my level, sharing details they normally wouldn't share. I love that. People think the purpose of these cars is to get girls and all of that. But I made connections off that car that I couldn't get without paying $50,000 for a charity dinner. So here's what it cost: $123,000 sales tax, $4,000 maintenance, $7,000. Ellie and I spent $134,000 for 10 months of ownership for the Lambo. Couldn't you lease it? Okay, I don't know. I'm not a financial, maybe you didn't need to buy it all, but then you sold it all. Okay, I sold it for $117,000 in the end. Okay, I mean I guess I'll believe that. But how did I make $20,000 profit if I sold the car for less than I paid? Thanks to attention from the car, I made a new connection. That new contract helped me close a $40,000 deal before even selling the car. And years later, I ended up working with investors in my area
Oh my God.
on other deals. Most people think high-end cars are a terrible waste of money. They can be for sure, but the truth is, if you love cars and plan to buy one anyway, you may as well be benefiting from owning it. You'll end up creating relationships worth more than the money you lose on the car if you do it right. So, I mean, should we get a Left Reckoning?
Yeah, we'll get a big ass. I mean, yeah, but we would need to get a different kind of vehicle, I think. We need to get a souped up fucking Dodge Ram. I'm sorry. Drive that shit around, the connections we would make, the business deals we could make. There'd be astronomical.
All the advice, all the business
guys.
tips.
I did see a big ass Dodge Ram though, like, souped up the other day with a massive Palestinian flag on the back of it, which I thought was pretty sick.
That is, yeah.
So we could just do that. Just like work to change the perception of big truck guys. Is like, high value work there.
I love referencing deals like that. Like some guy comes up, he's like, "Hey, I know we can do a deal for $40,000. Why did you doing that deal?"
It's like this again. Like, this is what's so fun about these guys is like it is like what a child's imagination of like business is. It's just like a guy walks up, he's like, "Hey, you want to do a deal for $30,000?" Right? Completely abstracted. Like, what is it that you have? You know what I mean? It's like were goods exchanged? Were services done? No, we just I did a $40,000 deal. Also, like, if your idea, if the advice here is find a way to be around rich people, there are far better ways to be around rich people than spending $140,000 on a goddamn Lamborghini and driving to small towns. Like, let's again remind each other that, like, he said that what he did was drive to places that aren't Miami, I guess. So yeah, no, sneak into a country club, go to the Soho House. Jesus Christ.
I love the idea of like the thirstiest guy that's loitering around like country clubs because he's got like a Lamborghini Aventador and he's like, shit, I've been stalking all the places I know. No, bro, I mean, there are clubs for this sort of thing. Like he mentioned, like that, like charity shit. Like you need to buy a suit and probably go to that shit. And there's Leeds clubs. I don't know. But buying a sports
and I'm sorry, way better success. Look, low success. All of these strategies, by the way, y'all. We'll be honest about them. But if you're trying to go and make deals, and we don't know what these deals are, $10,000 charity dinner or something like that, you at least have FaceTime with people. Standing around a parking lot like this guy is saying in his Lamborghini. I'm sorry, you're more likely to be approached by if you want teenagers to come up and ask you what you do for a living, buy a Lamborghini,
right?
Around in a parking
lot. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, on the other hand, I do have another vehicle you might consider if you did want to really impress people. These are the Apocalypse 6x6 vehicles here. My neighbor just bought one of these for $235,000. You can check that out there. And what I love is all the people roasting the neighborhood, which looks like a nice neighborhood. But I do think, like, if you have that much money to spend on a fucking stupid basically tank, maybe you'll buy a house that isn't in a duplex.
No offense to duplex dwellers, but I mean, you got to protect what you own, man. I mean, that's the thing. That's a priceless investment. Is that those crazy ones owned by that Iranian dude? Okay, yeah.
Is it? So what's funny is, like, there's nothing on this website about this being bulletproof. You can get Kevlar paint, but that's not bulletproof as far as I know. And so I don't really understand. Like, basically, it seems like you're buying like Jeep bodies with Hemi engines and sort of upgraded interior put into it.
Yeah, I don't remember if this is the same one as, because we've done a few of these, and it's even more. It's not surprising at all, I guess, that doomsday vehicles are in vogue right now.
And it's funny because it's like it'll luxury indulge in extreme comfort with a full custom marine grade leather that accommodates 5 large individuals over 7 feet tall. I mean, and it's funny, it's like it'll be a sanctuary. It's just like,
it is really
crazy. You guys
crazy.
are scared.
Yeah, extremely scared. I mean, you know, it is like the most perfect final stage of suburban paranoia. Is to, like, you know, it's like one conspicuous consumption in the sense of like, I got to buy a thing that everyone knows is really expensive. But also like that very, very clear paranoia that like everybody's coming to get your shit. And I think a guy, no offense again to, you know, there's no problem living in a duplex. But the guy living in the duplex being like, I got to fucking defend what's mine. I think it's a very great embodiment of that ideal.
From an investment standpoint, you fucked up there, man. Because that truck,
you could have had a Lamborghini and made $40,000 business.
Got a bunch of business cards. Yeah. But like, imagine spending $250,000 on that.
It's crazy.
That's, I mean, who are you going to sell that to in 5 years?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I want the used fucking.
I'm paranoid, but I'm on a budget too. So.
Yeah, I mean, that the doomsday prepper guys, the bunker builders, you know, there's been plenty of stories about how the rich and famous are very worried that, you know, things are going to start breaking down and they need to get out. And I don't know. I mean, it's just like, it is funny that even in a system where there are winners and losers, even some of the quote unquote, let's call them winners, right? I don't know. That's always accurate, but let's just play with it for a second. Even they are just extremely anxious and uncertain about the future. It's just another example of why we got to fucking tear the system down.
I would love to work.
You can be one of the richest guys in the world and just be suffering from severe mental illness and depression in a very public way.
I would love to
dark.
be a contractor. I'd love to be a contractor making this shit for these guys. Like, you know, the for the rich guy.
You know, you have to have a cellar, you have to have a larder down here. You know, the thing is, a lot of guys who build these deep underground, they don't realize that you need to have, you know, pure steel around your pipes where they might burst and you'll be underwater. When the nuclear fallout is still on the surface. Yeah, I mean, truly special stuff. How do you get into that? You know, with businesses like that, I'm always like, hell yeah, when someone gets into like a scam business. You know, but there is a day when the business doesn't exist and then a day where it does. I would be very, you know, like that's an interesting like niche to get into. Is
got to be a referral type of thing, right? Like a rich guy was looking for somebody to do this, and he's like, my buddy's also massively wealthy, and
it's very paranoid. And then I just got a Lamborghini and I sat in his parking lot until he gave me his business card.
Yeah, we're being chased by guys in rented sports cars.
These guys, like, you know, people are following me around everywhere. I need to get a bunker.
Being gang stalked by a guy in a Bugatti. Well, speaking of rich paranoid guys, I also do want to share this Donald J. Trump Jr. video, because he has a TV. He's streaming now. I don't know if you knew this. Our boy, our
I'm
amped up
actually
boy,
a Duke of Hazzard.
Yeah. Is that a thing? Is that an honorable title? Well, let's play. This is what triggered with Donald Trump Jr. and he's talking about he's a man.
I'm actually a Duke of Hazzard. And I'm also a Kentucky Colonel, and I have a lot of friends out there in the coal mining space, and I've gone. I think my son shot his first elk there. Actually, I've done that hunt.
I gotta say, the use of coal mining space Like if you're a coal miner, I don't know if you're using that language. If you are an executive of companies or deal with coal mining executives, maybe you'll say, yeah, I'm in the coal mining space. Just to kind of undermining himself a little bit.
Mining space, and I've gone. I think my son shot his first elk there. Actually, I've done that hunt. It's actually a great hunt. It's really, really cool. The scenery is incredible. The people are awesome. You usually think of elk as being further out west, but no, that's a great hunt with great people. I've had a lot of good times there. Do you ever use a recurve bow? Actually, I use a recurve bow all the time. At least when I left New York, I haven't joined like a club here for it. But when I left New York, I was my recurve and compound local bow club champion. So I can do both. I spent a lot of time learning how to shoot a recurve / longbow real well, like shooting just bare bow.
Now I gotta say, I kind of think it's a little bit like I don't call myself a communist, despite subscribe to that ideology, because I'm not a member of a communist party. I kind of and when I would do say that, people say like, "Hey, are you a member?" And I'm not, so I don't say that. Don't talk about being the recurve champion if you've been to, where is he at, Tennessee now or Kentucky or something like that. You're not clubbed up, buddy.
And I need to know. I'm sorry. I don't even know if we're talking about this New York club. Are we talking about like New York State or New York City? I don't know, because I think there's a big difference between winning like the fancy lad bow competition in Manhattan and like being maybe Western New York hunting champ.
Yeah. What was your exposure to hunting growing up? Because I come from a hunting family. It's a big part of my life, and North Dakota is probably a huntery state as far as they go. I'm curious, South Carolina or wherever, what was your exposure?
Just a little bit. I went out, I didn't grow up with like a father or anybody like that to teach me. So, I went out duck hunting a couple times, and but not too much. But I was around it.
What about your classmates?
Everybody. There's a lot of hunting. Hunting was huge. That's why I had like secondhand experiences with it.
Right.
I did a lot more shooting and things like that. But no, it was a very big part of the culture for sure.
Yeah, and what strikes me about Trump Jr. is like something I definitely I can't forget the time I saw Bobby Knight, the former coach of the Indiana Hoosiers. He used to come up to northwestern North Dakota, where I used to pheasant hunt with my family, and it's just indicative of rich guys move differently when it comes to hunting. Like it's not quite the trucks we just looked at, but it is like, the fully specced out stuff. And I think for a long time, hunting in America has been a populist thing. I think there's definitely still that to this degree. I've been in New York for 10 years, and I've gotten maybe one pheasant hunt in the past decade. But I do think it's gentrifying pretty rapidly to the point where you need to know landowners, you need the gear. Yeah.
No. I was just going to say, totally. I think that you're right, Matt. But there's always been two kinds of hunting, right? There's my daddy's taught me how to hunt, because we need it sometimes. And then there's always been rich guy hunting lodge, right? That's why we have terms like that. And, obviously, the European aristocratic version of it. The boar we have in America, why those are here. Those aren't indigenous here. They came here because the fancy boys were like, I miss doing this back in Europe. So they dropped an invasive species in America, and now we have, feral hogs all across the United States of America, right? So there's always been a two-tiered version of this. I think what is maybe more interesting now is those two tiers, the people at that top tier aren't. So for a long time, I think it was sort of, we differentiate, it's like, oh, we chase after this kind of game because this is more elevated. This is more of a sport. Y'all need to do this because you're poor. We do this just because, for the love of the game. And now I think rich guys, it's reversed. They want to come off as, a kind of, folk hero hunter, who is of the land versus somebody escaping the city for the weekend.
yeah, like the Daniel Boone sort of mythos. But like, it's just like, man, if Donald Trump Jr. First of all, wake up. You're streaming. Open your eyes. But I just feel like it's just like I'm in the coal mining space, and I'm not. I would love to see Trump Jr. and I'm sure there's like some that he would feel comfortable in. I'm not denying that entirely, but like, I don't know, the boast about the recurve, because the recurve, for people who don't know, there's like the compound bow, which has the gears, and there's more. It's easier to get more force behind your arrow as opposed to recurve or longbow. I don't know, like. What an interesting life that guy has. To come, you can see him in the fanciest sort of places that his dad built in the 80s as this little Trump thing, and he's like kind of rejecting that whole thing for a rural aesthetic. I mean,
this is the most. I'm sorry, this is the most American thing of all time.
Yeah.
To do like American elite. I mean, think about Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt. You know what I mean? Like, way cooler, by the way, because he at least sort of like did a lot of the shit that he was famous for. But I mean, this has been a part, particularly actually like the New York elite, sort of going off into the country. But no, I mean, I think it's what's funny is the extra claims to authenticity that we get from like the Trump family, which is probably on the more extreme level of like wealth and privilege and power that group comes from. Because there are families that are wealthy, but like maybe there's just like a generation out from, if not like poverty, of like modesty. This is just like fucking golden toilet, your entire life you've been sitting on top being like, I'm just a simple boy here hanging out in Kentucky with my fellow Americans.
And it's also like, I just think you should have to make do a little bit if you're doing this stuff. Like, even if it's just hiking, like to be able to go right into it with the best gear. It's like in a video game, you don't start, you have to like level your way up to the best gear. And
this is modern America, just like video games, Matt. Back in the day, you sort of had to grind for that best sword. Now you can go into the loot box and pay $100 and get it. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I love these boys. We're looking forward to seeing much, much more of them over the next few months.
I got to tune into Triggered TV to see how...
Do you remember he was Junior was sort of floated as like, if this whole thing doesn't work out for Trump? I remember at the Republican convention, CNN, whoever analyst being like, he's got a real knack for politics and a real knack for public speaking. It's a weird reminder of the way people were trying to, maybe he's less crazy than his dad, basically. He's 100%. He's 100%. Going to run for Senate or something like that. I'm pretty sure in the near future. I think the interesting thing is going to be what state he does it in, because he's not going to run in New York. He's going to do a Hillary Clinton of, sort of my whole political career is from the Midwest and Arkansas. And then, I'm the senator from New York all of a sudden. But it'll be interesting to see, they're sort of looking out, I'm sure, for what state seems open for him, because I'm sure he wants to get in there.
Look, I mean, I think he sucks, but relative to other Republicans, I don't know. I don't know if he's that much worse than most of those freaks. One other thing I saw is people freaking out about if Trump gets into office again, he might do something so he can stay and be president for life. And if that's related to term limits, I'll just say do that, because you'll die and we won't have term limits anymore. Like, I just feel like it's weird when people get to the point where you think term limits are good because Trump might benefit a couple of years from it.
I mean, I'll say, my whole thing on that from the get-go is term limits. Hey, hell, even like age limits on these kind of things. I think that like there's a reason we have a vote for these things. Yep. And like, again, term limits, the reason that they, that came up was because people were worried about FDR.
Exactly.
And I don't know. Wasn't necessary. Yeah. I think I'm happy FDR was able to be president as long as they were. I will say that.
Yep.
Well, before we go, I want to take a quick visit down memory lane because we still play a decent amount of this guy's stuff. But it's been a long time since we've really gotten to the level of ideas with him. And Dave Rubin has sort of been hanging around with the guys at Valuetainment. And
Oh yeah.
he's been valuetaining. I'll give him this. And in this clip, Dave Rubin is about to destroy Medicare for all forever, which, look, I miss, I've been talking about this a lot, Matt. I think that it's a shame that the left in the US has sort of moved away from doing mass politics. It's a shame that, like, when was the last time you, like, actually, even us, like, self-criticism, when was the last time, like, we actually, like, got into Medicare for all talk? It's been a while. And it's because it doesn't feel like it's on the political agenda. But that's a good space for our movement to be, because you really start to differentiate our movement from a whole host of other kind of political tendencies, be they liberal to independent, centrist. So I'm happy to see the right trying to revive debates about whether or not people should have free healthcare or not. Because I think
retirement,
I think that makes us look very good. But anyways, here's Dave Rubin, who is going to dissuade you from your pro Medicare for all perspective.
Medicare for all, like, of course, everyone wants everybody to have healthcare. This is where they have this very thin veneer. The ideas, it all kind of sounds right. But then we know, I mean, even post Obamacare, we know that most doctors, I have several friends who are doctors who were fairly successful doctors before Obamacare, and now they mostly are pencil pushers and paper pushers and everything else, and do more involving real estate than actually tracking and prescribing medications for patients. So the idea of could the government give everybody free education? Sure, the idea is nice. Does it mean the education is good? No, actually, we know that for a fact. Could the government give everybody health care? Well, the idea is nice. Could it actually? And what was, so if you have socialized healthcare? Now, first off, all
right. Let's jump in on this first one. All right, because we're about to hear about the plight of the commons in a second from genius Dave Rubin. So what the criticism of Obamacare? Hey man, I'm here for it. I think Obamacare is a disaster. That's why I support Medicare for all. But the criticism of Obamacare here is that doctors are spending too much time dealing with bureaucracy. That's an interesting term. What bureaucracy is it that they're dealing with, Matt? Is it the United States government or the Department of Health? Or is it Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield? The people that they're dealing with all the time is the fucking private insurance industry, which is a demonic and anti-human institution that needs to be done away with, because it does waste time of doctors who call up and say, hey, so-and-so needs this surgery or this treatment, and a jackass who has no real medical training on the other end of the line, it's like, well, I don't think we want to pay for that. So could you not treat them or give them some kind of pseudo treatment that we will pay for? And the doctor, stands up for their patients, blah, blah, blah. That is the back and forth nightmare of American healthcare. That comes from, the profit motive. Because that was a problem, by the way, before Obamacare. That's something that is inherent in the scheme of having private organizations control our healthcare, instead of having it be run for the public and the public benefit.
Yeah, I mean, same for the commodification of higher education relative to public school. I mean, the problem, public school in America is a massive achievement. When you look at it over the course of centuries, the issues that it faces comes from our tax structure and how we fund that. But all that stuff has basically been bastardized by rich people wanting to basically withdraw from certain communities and only invest in others. And we should just be doing it broadly speaking. Federally funding schools would take care of these problems entirely. So yeah, we could do a higher education, and actually a lot of the same problems come from the over financialization of that as well.
Here's the next bit here.
There's always going to be private healthcare too, because the rich people and the people that can afford it are going to still.
First of all, that's just not true, but whatever.
Yeah, outlaw it. You can tax them. First of all, the existence of rich people, particularly as they exist now, like the ultra super wealthy, like that could be solved with policy.
But
Can't get off the
also,
planet.
in terms of like a massive system, like let's just be you can never forget, if you actually want to talk on, give this more credence than you need to. You know, I think one thing that like even our side needs to remember is that like America is an extremely unequal country. An extremely unequal country. And what I mean by that is not just that some have so much and some have so little. It's also that like a very small group of people have so much while the rest of us don't. So if you're talking about raw numbers, like even given the scenario that he's going to sort of lay out, and the idea is that basically rich people will take money out of the public system and float a private insurance industry. There are only so many rich people and people with the money to be able to float a system like that. Right. So that is something that can be dealt with on the level of policy, but even just on the level of like economics, you need to deal with the mass of the country because that is where the most care is going to be delivered and provided to. Just numbers game. Anyway.
Get the best care, and they're going to figure out other ways to pay for it. And basically every good doctor will figure out how to get out of the system. So you will have a system with lesser care in general. But then let's say we're all in this system together, or basically the bulk of us are in this system.
Yeah. Again, you know, just ludicrous. I mean, you can look at issues of like, you know, underfunding of a public health system. I mean, look at America and we have an issue with that already. Oh, wait, a two-tiered system of healthcare, Matt? Could you imagine what that would be like?
People die in this country every day because they just don't have access.
I mean, this is what's so nasty about these guys. It's like point to something actually going on right now. It's like, oh, rich people can get healthcare and everyone else can't. Oh, what a nightmare. Dave, that would really suck if that was the reality in the United States.
System together. Well, if you're young and healthy and you eat right and you exercise and all of those things, and then your neighbor is fat and eats fast food all the time and never exercises and has diabetes and a bunch of other comorbidities and everything else, should you pay less or more than they pay? And you can see how over time it will create all of these resentments between people because, oh, I do everything right. And then what you end up doing is what we largely do in America, which is you punish all of the good people. Oh, you take care of yourself? Well, you still have to pay in as much as the person who doesn't, even though they're a drain on the system.
No, people are happy because they get healthcare. I get healthcare and you get healthcare. Oh, when I go to the doctor, I don't have a bill. What are you talking about? Somebody's going to be mad about it. The only, like, this is somebody who's like, this is not a political argument. This is an argument for people who have personal psychologies that are extremely nasty and antisocial. This has very little to do with whether or not a healthcare system is functioning or not. It has to do with you being a little weirdo who's sitting inside looking at your neighbor and privately fuming. Sounds like what you guys are doing today. So we don't really see if there's a big difference under the system.
Him saying like it'll create these resentments. No, bro, you create those resentments. You like cultivate them with your programming every day. Like the idea that you, first of all, like what if your kid gets like some sort of like disease or something, right? Like this drain on the system. What if you get hit by a car crossing the street? This drain on the system is Nazi shit. Like, I mean, or maybe that's a little bit extreme. It's like very anti-human or antisocial, as you say. Like you're going to a very toxic place when you start thinking about that, when actually everybody knows who doesn't have like Malibu or whatever Miami mansions knows that actually we're all pretty fucking close to precarity on this. Even let's say somebody who used to work at the Daily Wire and maybe got fired for criticizing Israel, maybe got fired for anti-Semitism. That person who has kids shouldn't have to like worry about where their health care is going to come from as they try to work on where their next job's coming from. And everybody knows this except the really rich people.
Yeah. I mean, you know, everyone, the nice thing for Dave is like, you know, found a good group of people to be around. They're all very supportive of him. He's blowing their minds and, you know, sweet.
And you're not a drain on the system. Oh, you have a good job and you pay more into the system and you don't use the system? Well, that guy doesn't really have a good job and doesn't really do anything and plays video games and watches porn all day, but he's going to get more of the bulk of the benefits of the system. So the more we centralize the ability, the more we centralize the system that we're all part of, the more we actually have working against each other rather than figuring out what works for you, your family, etc.
I mean, that's just mathematically not true. That's not how risk pools work. Like you can, and just the larger pool of risk that people are sharing. Again, like it's not just. First of all, as a not overweight person, let me just say, like the rise in weight in this country is not down to personal choices. In the mid 80s, like there was one state, I think it was Mississippi, that was above a 20% obesity rate. Now it is pretty much basically all of them. Like there has been wide changes to food in this country and the kind of diets people are accessing and lifestyles. Like these are, and this is part of a capitalist society and like a subsidized, agricultural system. These are things that really need to be dealt with, not in a, I don't want to pay for that guy's healthcare if he has diabetes.
But it's okay. I mean, like, well, let's even accept this. Like, let's just imagine that the dumbass coalition, right? The Dave Rubin political coalition is out there, and they're really mad that people can't get credits for certain kinds of behaviors. You want Big Brother in there doing that? Fine. You want it? We could do it. If you quit smoking, you get $200 off of your fucking tax bill at the end of the year. Whatever, dude. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? It's like, it's bizarre. Personally, like, that's not my favorite kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily argue for. But if what is standing between us and Medicare for all is like, oh, we could incentivize some kind of healthy behavior from people with the tax credit, go for it, man.
Yeah, strengthen the state, buddy. I appreciate it.
Bizarre. I mean, yeah, it's and the funniest thing about it is that, like, the only thing we're talking about all this stuff that's going on the right. We talk about a lot on this program and in others. Really, the big difference is just like the sets that they're on. I mean, this is what they were saying on Fox News in 2015, and it was just a different guy saying it, right? It was like a redder-faced Fox News host saying it, and now, we've moved to independent, media, and it's a bunch of dumbasses sitting in I don't even know what you would call that room, but very darkly lit semicircle, like the Council of Elders, repeating the same shit they were saying on Fox News a decade before.
Yeah, I do just want to shout out Straighterade, one of the young women on that, asked Dave Rubin if he would debate Sam.
I did see that, yeah.
Which it's funny. Like I don't understand that environment, that valuetainment sort of, like what they're doing. Because like you said, you told me about that thing, and he has it at the top of his page. PBD interviewed Kobe for like Kobe Bryant, the basketball player, for like one of his scam things, and from a credibility standpoint, that is, I mean, it's huge, right? Like, I'm still like kind of impressed about it, and I know he's a fucking scammer. But yeah, that whole new constellation of sort of manosphere stuff, very interesting world going on over there.
It's something else, well, plenty of opportunities to dive more into it. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Easter Sunday. We'll be back this Tuesday with our good friend Matt Huber, who has a really interesting piece out in Jacobin along with Lee Phillips. Really looking forward to that conversation. Come and join us Tuesday, 6 Central. Appreciate all of y'all, and see you soon.
Peace.